Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our ePortfolio showcase. My name is Pablo Avila. I am the Associate Director of the Center for Teaching and Learning at LaGuardia Community College. And it's my pleasure to welcome you to our ePortfolio showcase today. Um, we chose to do this event remotely to allow for more people to attend. The ePortfolio team hasn't organized an ePortfolio showcase in quite a few semesters. So we wanted to get back on track and have an opportunity to um, share some of the work that our students are doing. So I think we're going to see the slides in a moment. Who's sharing the screen, the slides? Oh, thank you very much. So as we move along in the event, I will introduce our students in just a moment. But before I do that, I wanted to acknowledge the work that the ePortfolio team has done. You can see their faces on the screen. Thomas, Arpana, Brian, Giselle, Liliana, Kay, and Christina, they all have taken the time to not only work with students one-on-one, but also provided them with feedback and giving them all the resources to make sure that they have their portfolios ready. But broadly, they also support students across all different programs via workshops and study hour courses. They do a lot of support for students to make sure that their ePortfolios look great for them to be able to share them with an outside audience if they wish to. So I wanted to acknowledge the work that they do. Can we go to the next slide? So, as I mentioned already, the event today will feature 6 students from different disciplines. I will introduce them in just a moment. You will see a range of different portfolios, and you will likely hear from the students and their reflections about building portfolios in terms of our design studio, and some of them will share their core ePortfolio as well. Our design studio is an initiative that we have embarked on for the last couple of years, in which we work with our career office on campus, our Center for Career and Professional Development office, to partner with them and identify industry professionals on the field, professionals who are willing to review students' portfolios. And they are invited to a feedback session in which they review students' portfolios and give them feedback, especially those students who are near the point of graduation. So that's our design studio initiative. You will likely hear about that briefly today. And all of our presenters will talk about their experiences building their portfolios and adding content to them. Can we go to the next slide? And now I would like to ask our Associate Provost, Dr. Eric Hofmann, to give us some welcoming remarks. Eric?
Thank you, Pablo. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us today for the showcase. Um, I just want to say that for those of you, many of you are familiar with this, some of you, this is new. The ePortfolio has been such a hallmark of what we do as the part of the LaGuardia education. ePortfolio is one of the designated high impact educational practices from the indicated by the American Association of Colleges and Universities. And we think that the importance of having students collectively work on building, constructing, and reflecting on their learning over the time that they're with us at LaGuardia is such an important part of that learning process. And the showcase is just a culmination for these 6 students today about what they've learned and their reflection on that their time here at LaGuardia. And it gives us an artifact to point to for that learning. I want to thank many people today, starting with Pablo and the ePortfolio team as part of the Center for Teaching and Learning here. So much goes on behind the scenes, but the work of this team over all of the time that I've been at LaGuardia, I've always been impressed by how they've supported and engaged students in technology, but also working with faculty on this as well. So I just want to extend my thanks to the team. I want to thank all of the professors, our faculty who have supported the students who are here today and have taken the time to mentor them in the classroom, build the courses over the time that students are with us along their degree, and helping to give their feedback and mentorship to those students. So thank you for our professors who are joining us. And then finally, to the students who are showing us their work today. It's not always easy to get up and show everyone what you're doing, but we thank you for doing this. And I think it's an important part of the process to share with others what you've done and to learn from others in moments like this. So thank you to all the students. I know you'll do great in your presentations. We also have visitors from Digication. Digication is the company that creates this tool, but they have actually been partners with us for more than a decade in helping us think through the tools as they're making modifications. They have been really responsive to feedback from us, and I just want to thank you all for joining us today. I know there are other things going on, including the AAC&U conference that I mentioned. So thank you. Good luck to all of you presenters, and thanks again to all of you who are joining us. I hope you have good questions for our students. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Eric. Much appreciated. Can we move to the next slide? Um, Let me now share with you the format of our event. Each student will present their ePortfolio for about 3 to 5 minutes. And in the end, we will have we will have a chance to ask questions. I invite all of you to use the chat feature in Zoom to share any comments or questions that you may have for any of our presenters. Our colleague Brian from the ePortfolio team will be monitoring the chat, and we'll have a chance to compile your questions at the end, and there will be a time for our students to be able to respond to that. So with that, let me now introduce you to our student presenters. First, we're going to have Janella Katapang. She's a physical therapy assistant. Students, let's go to the next slide so we can see all of them. Then we're going to have Jara, who is an engineering student. Let's go. Thank you. Misael Lara Zuniga, who is an occupational therapy assistant major. Nayeli Velasquez, who's a paralegal studies major. Sara Flores Garcia, who is an education major. And Tyler Wes, who is a physical therapy assistant major. So you have now seen snippets of their portfolios. And what we're going to do now is we're going to open the floor for our students to do their presentations. And once again, if you have any questions or comments, please use the chat feature and we'll have a time at the end to ask our student presenters any questions. Thank you, and I'll pass it on now to Janella.
Hello, everyone. I'm Janella Katapang. I'm a LaGuardia student with the physical therapist assistant major. So we can go ahead and actually go over to the About Me page. So to briefly go over a little bit about me, I flashed it also a little bit more in depth, but I've had a lot of experience in movement, whether it was as a martial artist. I've also worked in previous healthcare jobs as a EMT and a patient care assistant. And a lot of these experiences led me to wanting to choose the physical therapist assistant major because it really helps. It was a culmination of everything I wanted to learn about. So a lot of the classes I took at LaGuardia, whether it was anatomy and physiology, kinesiology, critical thinking and public speaking, functional pathology, a lot of these classes have really built up everything that I've learned so far. And to sort of exemplify some of the what I've worked on, we can actually go to the first assignment page to see an example. So if we can go ahead and go over to the assignment.
One second, Janelle, I think They're trying
Okay,
to
yeah,
adjust
no
something.
problem.
Okay, Janella, can you continue?
Yeah, we can go ahead to the first task assignment. Yeah, that one. So this was an example of me understanding a diagnosis and understanding a person in their whole, besides just knowing them as their diagnosis. So the ICF framework helped me understand them in terms of like place, context, environment. And I created a whole video to understand project to understand like the patient beyond just who they are, but to see them as a whole. So in the second assignment, it actually goes more into the specifics of it. The task analysis project, it had allowed me to utilize what I learned in clinical kinesiology class, and understand the nitty-gritty of the anatomy and physiology and the kinesiology of like the person and how it gets applied to their everyday, and see how their issues can actually affect them. And besides like getting into the specifics of their diagnosis, seeing them as a whole, in the third assignment, we also looked into like what is it like for someone whose disability has reached to a point where they need to use a wheelchair. And this assignment, this project allowed me to really get a sense of what, like what are the ADA guidelines that are needed to understand like what do people need to be able to navigate in society and still, like take part in the community. And so all of these assignments together and a lot of my classes at LaGuardia and past experiences have really helped me build up to understand and really, like make use of it in my current day and my current clinical internship, as well as what I plan to use in the future. Um, and with all of this, like it really will help me like essentially like this portfolio would help me present to like future employers, or like if I were to transfer for because my future plan is to be at the to go into a physical therapy program, is to also present this to exemplify like what I've learned. And at the end of the day, like one of the my favorite boxers, Muhammad Ali, once said that don't count the days, make the days count. And essentially that, like everything that I've done until now and continue to is all building up towards what I want to achieve. That's it. Thank you.
Okay, so now moving on to John.
Hey everyone, I'm John Jara Morales, mechanical engineering student at LaGuardia. Over the next few minutes, I'll walk you through my ePortfolio and my design choices, my leadership, coursework, and what I learned about what kind of engineer I want to be. First thing you notice is a nature theme. There is rivers and mountains, and it's peaceful. But it isn't just an aesthetic. It represents my interest in environmental applications for mechanical engineering. If you scroll to the bottom, see the rest of the ePortfolio. And when I first enrolled in engineering, it didn't seem like a good fit. I've always enjoyed advocating for causes, and the classes were rigorous, and the first semester was tough. And so I branched out. If you go to the About Me title, you see an extracurricular slide. And then if you scroll down, you can see more or less where I started. Oh, well, this is an outdated version, but I got involved in Student Senate, which led to President Society. And you see, I went from Student Senate to President Society, which led me to run for Student Government President, and I won. And that opened doors to the CUNY University Student Senate. You can see scrolling up. There I became Vice Chair for International Student Affairs, representing 15,000 students across 25 campuses. and I was elected for Model Senate in Albany. And so one opportunity kept pushing to the next, and suddenly I was advocating for causes that I cared about on a much bigger scale. But here's the thing, I had to figure out how to connect this to engineering. So if you go to the coursework tab, I listed a lot of my classes throughout the semester. I want to focus on the thermodynamics research paper, just to show you the research aspect. And in this paper, I compared 3 types of hydrogen cars for green hydrogen made with renewable energy, then gray from natural gas, and blue with carbon capture. And if you scroll through the results, I can just tell you the green is best for environmental, but most expensive to produce. And the project clicked for me because it combined engineering and economics. And it made me realize that you can design something, but it doesn't matter how good it is. If nobody can fund it, then it won't get built. And I want to show you my favorite project. If you scroll up, you see the beginning sculpture on the hat sculpture project. Oh wait, and this is an outdated version, but there was a sculpture project where I made a hat. So in the assignment, I used a cardboard to make a 2-foot sculpture. And it's simple, but I thought, why not engineer this? So I scaled measurements. I created a 3D model in SolidWorks. I sliced it in Fusion 360. I then laser cut all the parts with a laser cutter from City College, and I assembled it at home. And nobody asked me to do it this way. I just wanted to see if I could apply engineering tools to something creative. But turns out that you can over-engineer a cardboard hat, and it taught me that engineering thinking applies to anything. Then if you go to the resume, right, so building this ePortfolio, it reminded me what I value. I need to work for a cause I believe in, and I need to see the entire process in design, assembly, and research. The hydrogen project, the sculpture, the policy work, it all points to the same thing. I want a career where engineering creates tangible solutions for real problems, especially environmental ones. And this ePortfolio is where I am now, and LaGuardia gave me the technical skills and opportunities to figure out what kind of engineer I want to be. So thank you for listening, and I'm happy to answer questions.
Thank you so much, John. And as a reminder, if anyone does have questions, please write them in the chat because we will be saving your questions towards the end. And now we have Misael.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Misael, and my major is occupational therapy assistant. And I'm currently in my final semester of LaGuardia. Today I'll be going through my ePortfolio, highlighting some key pages of and sharing how building this ePortfolio supported my growth as a student, and it worked on my digital presence, as long as it allowed me to discover professional. Yeah, allowed me to. Sorry.
You can continue, Misael.
Sorry. Thought I heard hold. Yeah. So it allowed me to discover some professional and personal goals. So right here is my about me. Um, this page serves as a general overview of who I am as a student, um, and as a person, and what my values are, and what my interests are, and how they coincide with occupational therapy, and any future goals that I believe uh, I can achieve through occupational therapy. One of writing this page was meaningful because it required me to reflect on my past experiences and how they've shaped me. Uh, One of the things I mentioned in here is that I I believe social media is very prominent in society, and it's not being, perhaps explored through the healthcare system in the way I think it can be. And these are just like interests, that kind of separate, it's my personal beliefs. And one of the most meaningful things I learned about ePortfolio was having a space to be intentional about how I present myself. I personally haven't had social media for a very long time, just for personal reasons. And this ePortfolio has given me a chance to have a digital presence and not be left behind by um society, you know. It's a place where I could communicate who I am in a thoughtful way. And next, I would like to talk about my series of journey statements. I would like to highlight my initial phase uh journey statement in the about it's under the about me. Yeah. Mm, yes. Thank you. And this page captures where I was in the beginning. You know, it's my starting point. I talk honestly about how before the program I felt like a broken man, a man being overtaken by vices that I thought were out of my control. Uh, I share a quote in here about from a famous occupational therapy practitioner. She says, "Man, through the use of his hands, as they are energized by mind and will, can influence the state of his own health." And this is exactly what I felt. It I was it was after the first semester that I felt the transformative nature of doing things and not being in my head. One of the challenges in creating this page was honestly being vulnerable. Um, it allowed me to be transparent while also talking about my developing confidence, my growth, growth in curiosity, and my growth for the profession. This assignment contributed to me as a student because it encouraged me to, you know, take some time after certain chapters to sit down, reflect, you know, think about what's coming, how much I've grown. And it's something that it was very meaningful for me at the start. And now I would like to talk about my most recent journey statement, which is the final phase. Yeah. Yeah, so this is my cohort at my our pinning ceremony, and this is one of the most important pages because it it asked of me to reflect and read my previous journey statements and see how much I've grown. And I've gotten a deeper appreciation for the learning process. I no longer see myself as student completing assignments. I'm an emerging clinician with developing clinical reasoning, ethical awareness, and professional responsibility. This page aligns strongly with my career plans because it reflects my readiness to transition into the workforce while acknowledging that learning doesn't stop at graduation. Um, and next, I want to talk about, you know, some things that might not seem professional, like related to my professionalness. And it's under the coursework in 215, and it's titled Leadership. Yeah. Yes. So this page, I really like it because it showcases of how, you know, how I view leadership not as a title, but as a competency to show up through accountability, communication, advocacy. One challenge in building this was art was articulating what leadership meant to me rather than, you know, something abstract. And I want to highlight because it allowed me to connect my coursework, my professional identity, my future practice, and it helped me develop my writing, my self-reflection, and other careers, or other career goals. And it's something personal that it's not shown in resumes, you know. It's something I wish we could show on a resume. And another page going along the lines of those is the in my coursework under the 204 it's called Belonging, Becoming, and Being. Yeah. So this is another like going uh on with showing my personal side. This page reflects how my approach to learning has evolved. Writing this section helped me understand how mindsets affect resilience, motivation, and balance. One of the biggest takeaways for me was realizing how reflection supports academic success and personal well-being. It made me uh, grateful throughout my journey. When things got hard, just a picture of me um, with my friends in open lab, it kind of, showed me I'm not alone, I'm becoming the person I want to be. And these are, like I said, things that may not appear, skills that not appear, don't appear in resumes, like self-awareness, adaptability, intentional growth. And, it's critical for long-term success. And to conclude, my main takeaway from building my portfolio is that it gave me space to kind of integrate my my personal goals, my personal life with my academic goals. Uh, Often we think that they have to be different. I don't know if any of you have watched Severance, where it's like literally their lives are split, they in half. It's like their personal outside life and then their career life. And it doesn't have to be like that. What happens in one life affects the other life. And that's something that ePortfolio has helped me understand, transmit to others. And it's um it's honestly a very, very helpful um media. And it's a living document. I What you see today might not be what I have, once I start my new job. Or it's it's uh it's helped me learn a lot as a person. And thank you for your time and allowing me to share my ePortfolio journey.
Thank you so much, Misael. And now we have Nayeli.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Nayeli Velasquez, and I'm part of the Paralegal Studies program. I specifically did the certificate program, and in this program, we were told to think about the ePortfolio as a reflection of our resumes. And so that's where I did everything for my ePortfolio. So my About Me page is basically just everything that I did in my legal field. I have a bachelor's degree in criminal justice, and I then took on full come to LaGuardia to get my paralegal certificate. And if you scroll a little bit down, I have all my areas of interest in law, as well as my law goals and my experience. A key one being a treasurer in the Law Society program in LaGuardia. Now, if you scroll up, I do have a few more pages. The second page being my personal statement. So in the program, we were told to do a video where we reflected on a question, and we used that question to reflect in this video. And in this particular video, I talked about my goals in the legal field, as well as my strengths and weaknesses, and how I have used my weaknesses as a way to grow myself in the legal field. And I just talk about my goals later in life. And so the next page are my writing samples. So these are all the writing samples I did for one of my classes, which the ePortfolio is based on. The first one being just a way to describe each of the cases that we reviewed. And if you scroll down, we also have a legal correspondence, which is basically a legal letter where we imagine that we are writing to a client, and we use their circumstances to write a letter to them. And the final one down below is my final project, which is the legal memo. And it's a very long and tedious project where we took a scenario of a client and we broke it down into aspects and really described each one based on the law that we were using, which is Article 1. I won't go into detail, it's a lot, but that was my final project for the class. Now, the next page that I did for the ePortfolio was my resume. Again, as I mentioned, this is like an extension where we would be able to have this page so that anyone who searches up our name on Google, for example, will be able to find the portfolio and learn more about me and possibly hire me. So this resume is also included there as a way for them to see it. And it shows all my experiences, even ones that don't relate to the legal field, because I explained it in my video as well, how those connect to my strength field. And finally, my last page is something I added after being selected to showcase, which is my ePortfolio reflection. And I basically use this page as a way to show some things I wouldn't normally show in my resume. And I took advantage of being part of this program to show and share anything else that I found interesting in the legal field that doesn't fit in resume. So I talked about how ePortfolio was a one-of-kind experience. I was able to share a lot of things that I would share. So for example, I included the Columbia Law School tour my class took, as well as the class mock trial that one of my classes in the previous semester did. And really, I would just like to thank ePortfolio for allowing me the platform to share some experiences in the legal field that I normally wouldn't be able to share in a more professional stand. And that's pretty much it. Thank you.
Thank you, Nayeli. Next, we have Sara.
Hi everyone, my name is Sara Flores. I'm a freshman here at LaGuardia, and I will be showing you guys my ePortfolio core. And over here, we just have a bit about me, and I just talk a little about how I grew up in Queens, New York, and I just talk about a little bit of my experience in childhood education, a bit about my hobbies and my short-term and long-term goals in my career. I also talk a bit about of my experience during a gap year that I took from high school going on to college. I worked with seventh grade during my time in high school. Then I decided to work with kindergarten to fifth grade, and I kind of got the experience there. But then I still decided to work with early childhood, and I realized that I enjoyed working in childhood education the most. So once I made that realization, I decided to enroll into LaGuardia in childhood education. And if we go under coursework, under social foundations of education and how I became an educator. Thank you. So here I just talk a little bit more of my personal experience in schools. I feel like it's important that as a future educator, you reflect back onto your personal experience being the student in childhood education. I believe like I kind of had a harsh experience in childhood education, and I just want to make a difference for students so they don't feel like school is a place of negativity. And then over here, my prior academic experiences, I just talk a little bit more about how COVID kind of impacted my education, like the teachers that made an impact to my career choice, and kind of how my family, my language, and my background kind of affect or motivate me to be a future educator. And then if we go back to the coursework section, social foundations of education and philosophy of education. Thank you. So here in my foundations of educations course, I learned more about the theories of education and what makes a classroom environment strong, what makes students feel in a very comfortable environment to be able to grow, to be able to learn and adapt. And I also learned about what it takes for a teacher to make sure that students feel that growth within themselves, because it's not just about the students, it's also about how they see you as a teacher and how they show that you are showing them who you truly are. And I also wanted to showcase my design studio portfolio. Yeah, so here I just talk a little bit the same about me, kind of like my time here at LaGuardia and like the same things. If we go up to the assignments on ELL 101, So this is my language biography, and I think this really influences my career. This was my first course here at LaGuardia. The assignment was basically to talk a bit about the languages you grew up speaking, your experiences, my experience being bilingual, because I attended a dual language school and my parents speak Nahuatl, which is like a Spanish, it's from their pueblo in Mexico. So although I never really adapted the language, I did learn a few words here and there. So I just briefly speak about what it's like being bilingual and how that was both a challenge, but something that will help me down the road because I do plan to pursue a bilingual education in a 4-year college. And then if we go to the next assignment, yeah, ELL 110. So this assignment is arts and meme, and basically I made a collage of the things that kind of reflect who I am, my career, what motivates me, and kind of things that keep me going because a lot of these courses for education, they really want you to be in tune with yourself because you want your students to see who you are in kind of the same way for them to feel comfortable to be themselves as well. That's really important in education, and that's something that I want to bring into my future classroom. So here I just have a bit of like a few pictures of like things that I love of my cats, a teacher that I really made an impact on me in high school, and also like a few things that I've done in my field as like for some experience. And then if we just go to the last assignment, please. Yeah, ELN 120. Yep, so this was my classroom flag assignment for my Foundations in Education's course. This assignment was to essentially make a flag that might represent you to your students. As I previously said, like it's really important for teachers to have a classroom where you can be yourself and the students can be themselves as well. It's important to create that safe space. And yeah, at the bottom I have significance of flag components and kind of why I added these stuff. Snoopy and Woodstock are both like very loved by many and by myself. I really love Snoopy. Pete the Cat is something that I grew up with and that I also leaned towards when I was working with students in early childhood, as well as like kindergarten, first grade, around there. And I also encourage, diversity and students being in tune with where they come from and their backgrounds. And I'm also someone who really loves nature, and that kind of explains why both my portfolios are flowers. I love flower arranging, and that's something that I wanted to showcase through my portfolios. And it also kind of shows the growth because my e-core portfolio was in my freshman, like towards the start of my freshman year, and this was very recent. So I was able through that time I was able to expand my knowledge in my experience with exploring many flowers and exploring more of how to work with a variety of flowers. And I think that that's something that I really wanted to showcase here. And then if we go to my resume section. So here I just, a resume, I talk a little bit about my education, my experience. As I mentioned earlier, I work with pre-K to 8th grade. So I kind of, showcase that here. And this assignment or this section of the portfolio is really good for me because I am in a place where I am hoping to look into working at a school again. And I think that this ePortfolio is just really helpful to kind of show who I am and my values as a future educator and to see if they align with the school that I'm hoping to work for. And I also think it's really important and very essential to show who you are as an educator and if that's something, if I'm the kind of person that they would want in their team. So yeah, I really like this portfolio and it turned out to be my favorite, even if I wasn't too sure of how I was going to execute this, but it really goes back to knowing who you are, and yeah, just making sure you show who you truly are. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sarah. Now we have Tyler.
Hello, good afternoon. I was about to say morning, but no, it is the afternoon. Thank you for being here, and thank you for nominating me as part of the ePortfolio presentation and representing the physical therapist assistant cohort and the program. Janella is actually one of my cohort classmates. We are in the same classes together. We've been through the entire program together. Love working with her. She's a wonderful, wonderful student, and I think she's going to do fantastic in the field. Um, so, um, Sadly enough, I do have to speak about myself right now. So what I would say first is that hopefully none of what I say is going to like kind of overlap with what Janella was presenting on. But that's one of the beauties about physical therapy is it's such a huge science and it's such a huge school basically. um, Hardly ever does it you talk about the same thing. And what I mean by that is when we think of physical therapy, instantly I go to muscle building, muscle strength, muscle involving the muscles of the body. Yes, it does involve this, and kind of no, it doesn't always have to involve that. And we'll see this later on as we go over my assignments. But just a little bit about me: I do serve as president as for my cohort this year. And I'm so excited to be presenting to you what I have learned through the program and how this has really helped me. If we go to my About Me page, so a little bit about me. Yes, I will kind of, dig the little bits of information out of this. It's a little long, but I do have quite a history with music performance. I do hold a master's degree in music performance. I got my degree in clarinet performance from the University of Oklahoma. But during my time there is when I really got the feeling that, you know what, I think physical therapy, physical therapist assistant is more my route. What I noticed there is I was getting a lot of injuries in the hand, in the wrist, and the elbow, and then the shoulder, and eventually crept up to the neck and area. And what I asked my professor was like, why is this happening? Like, what's going on? And our conversation was basically around that, oh, it's normal for this to happen. But that was the extent of our conversation. My thought process was there's no way that this just happens and you have to deal with it. So the rest of my time during my schooling at Oklahoma was more focused on how each individual's body morphs and changes based on the instrument that they play. So, for instance, I play clarinet, and so naturally, one shoulder kind of wants to dip a little lower, so I kind of have to like raise it up a bit. Some other examples: a lot of flute players, they tend to bend their neck one direction, and they'll have a lot of shoulder issues because that's the arm and that's the shoulder that hold the flute up. Um, there's a lot of wrist injury. There's a lot of shoulder injury, especially in like percussion players. Any sort of basically all of the instruments that you have to hold up, which, if you think about it, is almost entirely all of them. A lot of violin players tend to have a lot of neck problems and then a lot of wrist problems and finger problems and elbow problems as well. So it kind of goes all over the board. So then that's when I was like, you know what? I'm more interested in like how we can like change our bodies to get them back to what we would think as normal or what we would think as more functioning. And that's where I kind of drove off into the direction of physical therapy. And so back to when I said, physical therapy is such a huge, almost umbrella term as to what you can see in physical therapy. It's not just muscle building. It's not just muscle, like involving the muscles, but it does involve muscle function. If we actually go to the assignments page, I believe it is. Yes, the assignments page, and it's just the first functional diagnostic right there. Yes. So in this one, we took our assignment was to take an everyday movement that we do and to basically break it down and analyze it. And in this assignment, I chose, well, we all bend over and pick up a bag at some point during the day. Sometime in our lives, we've probably picked up something off of the ground. Well, then I really broke down the movements. And as you can see from the sequence of movements, there's actually way more than what you're thinking is involved in just bending over and picking up that bag. And at any point in there, some sort of injury on some sort of muscle in some sort of joint can be either injured, can cause damage to the body, can alter your body in the future. And without taking the proper precautions of how you move your body, how the kinetic chain is working, then that could be a possible issue in the future. So let's say you injure yourself by picking up that bag off the ground, or that pencil, or that anything that dropped on the floor. Well, then now you've altered your body in a way that, like, well, you don't pick it up now the same way. So how can we move it back to what it was before you made this injury by doing something simple like our everyday things? You can do this assignment basically on anything you can possibly think of. How we hold our pencil in our hand. How do we pick up our pen? How do we hold our phones in our hand to the ear? Do you hold the phone up to your ear? Do you use speakerphone? Do you use Bluetooth and the headphones? It's so much that you can think of. And this one really helped me and analyze more about like how we're using our body, how other people use their body, and how me as like an incoming clinician, how I would analyze someone using their body. So it's a kind of like a ladder effect almost. If you can't really teach it on yourself, if you can't notice it on yourself, how in the world are you going to teach it to somebody else or notice it on somebody else? On our second assignment, if we go to our assignments page and we go to the diagnostic condition, so this is where physical therapy kind of takes, it's kind of a big question mark. So we again think of physical therapy as the muscle building, as like we're in the weight room, we're lifting weights, we're squatting, or we're bending to pick something up. But like, what happens when it's not those situations? What happens when it's more of a virus? And yes, oddly enough, and as simple as it may be, breathing exercises do count as physical therapy. Playing match games, like if you've ever played those like card games where you have to match the picture and memorize where that picture is, this is considered a physical therapy for specific patients. So in this assignment, we were supposed to choose a diagnostic and research it. And I really wanted to research long COVID, specifically brain fog. And what brain fog is more of what they're seeing, because this is such a new topic. It's constantly evolving, it's constantly changing, and it's such new material that there's still no definitive answer. But what they're noticing is that it is more of a neurological type of virus that affects like the brain, that affects the way we think and our memory. And so if you can imagine, you've been experiencing long COVID and you're not really sure what kind of symptoms it is. And let's just kind of put ourselves in this hypothetical story. You're a surgeon let's go extreme. So you're a surgeon and you're about to perform a surgery. And all of a sudden you walk in your room and you have the scalpel in your hand, and then all of a sudden you're like, what am I doing? This is an extreme example, but this is sort of an example of what brain fog does to a long COVID patient. They'll be going along in their everyday lives, and then all of a sudden it's like a complete fogginess on some subject. It's to a point of like they completely forget how to do something that they've done their entire lives. And it doesn't have to be that complicated. It could be like, I don't know, tying your shoe. They can't remember how to tie a shoe. They see the laces and they're like, hey, what do I do with them? They don't make that connectivity to, oh, yeah, this is how you tie them. We have to put our shoes on. We have to tie them to keep them together. And so this project really helped me think outside of the box of muscle building or the weight room or lifting weights and or running or our cardiac or our pulmonary or our breathing. It was more of a cognitive and more of a neurological and memory building. And this is what really stepped me out of the box of, oh, wow, like this is more, there's more cases to be done with physical therapy, especially with an ever evolving virus that could affect our memory and our neurological system. So in short, this was like a very fascinating subject to me, and I loved our neuro class, which was taught by Professor Ribeiro, and I believe she is in this meeting. Shout out to Professor Ribeiro. Thank you so much. So our last assignment, if we can go to that just really quickly. This was like, again, it was presented with Janella, but it did give us really quite a scope as to what we have to think about for the patients that need such a huge change to their lives. So this one was to analyze our living space and to, if the patient had to be in a wheelchair for however long, possibly the rest of their lives, we don't really know that, but if they had to be wheelchair bound. And it was kind of reversed. So if we had to be wheelchair bound, how is it that could we still live in the same houses that we or apartments that we do live in? Well, yes, that doesn't say that you have to move or you have to gut out your house and completely remodel, but what it does actually make us do is think like, is this actually wheelchair appropriate? Is our bathrooms like wheelchair appropriate? Can you fit a wheelchair in in simply the bathroom? It's not just like we can't just go to the bathroom as we normally would. We now have to think, okay, is it wide enough? Is it are all of the utilities like the toilet, is the sink at the proper level, is the shower appropriate? In this one particularly, I did observe like my kitchen setting, and what I noticed is like, wow, there's actually more of a regulation on like how high the cabinets are, how low are the cabinets, where is the sink placed. You can get specific microwaves. I wouldn't have thought of getting a specific microwave, or specific ovens that are designed basically for the people that are wheelchair bound, possibly for the rest of their lives. I can't really say for the rest of their lives, but for an extensive period of time. How would we alternate these household items in what we currently are situated in? So that's what this project was. And so to come to a sort of conclusion, what this PTA program has really showed me is that it's such a huge variety of what physical therapy and physical therapist assistants have to work with, have to think outside of the box. Currently, I have a pregnant patient, and like they can't do normal exercises as like you and I probably can, but we have to alternate them because there's now like she's pregnant, there's a baby inside of her. We have to really alter how our treatment is and how like the strengthening is due to what their symptoms and what their diagnoses are. And just for that, thank you so much for letting me represent the PTA program. And I hope you really enjoyed my presentation of the ePortfolio. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Tyler. Before we move on to the Q&A, there is one addition that a presenter would like to make. So at this point, I will hand it over to John. And again, as we do begin wrapping up, if you have any questions, please do share them in the chat. We're monitoring the chat, and we'll all have an open space to address those questions.
Thank you, Christina. And yes, I'm basically at the door right now. I just want to show two things. So for the coursework, I just want to show the sculpture hat at the bottom. Yeah, it's right there, beginner sculpture. There's a well as it's hat assembly project, and you can actually click on the arrows to see the steps. So first is the scaling of the hat, and then I scaled it up, the SolidWorks model in 3D. Then I use, you can go to the next one. That's a Slicer Fusion 360 to slice up the model. And then next is a laser cutter used to cut everything. Yep, and then there it is, a closer look. Yep, and then that's the parts. I took them home, and yeah, the next arrow. That's the assembly process. I'm assembling everything by hand. It's kind of like a puzzle in a way. Yep, and that's just halfway through the process. Yep, and that's the final result with the sculpture head and the sculpture. I could put paper mache on top of it to make it more realistic. There's a final image. It's like scaled up, it kind of looks like a Mexican head in a way. And then the resume, just want to show the resume. It's a more polished version of it. So that's over there, the LinkedIn page, and then the resume, and then a summary. Great, that's I'm feeling better. That's all I wanted to show. And thank you for listening. Thank you for allowing me to show the updated version.
Thank you, John. So at this point, we can wrap up to our student panel. I want to thank all of the presenters. Your presentations were wonderful, and it's evident that you have put a lot of work into your presentations, your design, your reflections were incredible. And again, what you've been able to accomplish is very admirable. So we do want to have an opportunity to hear from the presenters. And at this point, if anyone has any questions, please write them in the chat. I'll kind of go through them in the order that I see. I have some questions myself. The first question that I have actually is from Karen, and this question is directed to John. So John, this is kind of like a three-part question. So the question is, where do you see your work in the future, maybe anywhere abroad? And if you've thought about this, what do you hope to accomplish in other places in the world?
Well, what I know from my experience up until now, I know I'm majoring in engineering, but I'm really drawn to advocacy, and I guess particularly in higher education, I've been drawn to like student issues, student concerns. So in the future, I have been thinking about merging economy and engineering. I'm still very involved in environmental. I really want to get somewhere within that field, but I don't know anything about the future. I know maybe what I want to do right now. I think if I were to think about where I would be happy, it would be somewhere where I'm advocating for people and somewhere where I can put my technical skills to the test. So I really like the assembly, the design. That's a very challenging thing for me. It makes me feel it makes me feel like all of the rigorous classes that I took were worth something. They were for a purpose. And so I like to use my technical skill set, and I would like to help people. That's what I'd like to do.
John, I actually have a follow-up question. I'm sorry, I'm putting you on the spotlight. So throughout your presentation, you mentioned that building your ePortfolio helped you reflect on what you value. So how did building your ePortfolio help you reflect on your values and skills that you've developed at LaGuardia?
Well, I had to look through my journey from where I first started. And I mentioned that at the beginning, I wasn't really that fulfilled by engineering, by the classes I was taking. But it was only through opportunities that I took at LaGuardia. And like I mentioned, kind of one opportunity went to the next. So actually, when I was in Student Senate, I met Stefania, who was overseeing President Society, and she encouraged me to apply. And then while I was there, I met other people that were applying for student government, and then we all ran as a slate, and then I became president of that. And just it's kind of like a journey where one opportunity pushed me to the next, and other people that I met accompanied me throughout that process. So it was about networking as well, but it was kind of like me going and meeting ambitious individuals, and then we all did something together. We collaborated, and then we got somewhere. That's where I think that's the key to my journey in that sense. And in the end, I realized that it's about people. It's about me working with people and me doing something for other people. In the end, we all die alone, but we live among men. This is what we all have.
Thank you so much, John. We have another question from Albertine. I hope I'm saying your name correctly. So this is really for anyone. Are those who are in their final year of their programs planning to take their ePortfolios with them to continue to evolve and grow their professional journeys? And I can send the question once more in the chat. So anyone can answer this if they would like.
Yeah. I don't know what like the process of like going on, like the logistics of using ePortfolio after I graduate, but yeah, I would definitely, include it as, a link in my resume, or if going to any academic, like not academic, but professional conferences, maybe, sharing that, um, and kind of being able to, I'm planning on using it to build relationships, that are deeper than, you know, um, just like, oh, follow me on, it's either Instagram or Indeed, and like ePortfolio is like a great way to have like both of them, where it's like, like you read it and you might be like, oh, I want to be this person's friends. Like Sarah's ePortfolio. I was like, we have a lot in common. Maybe, um, maybe I'll read more into her ePortfolio, and it's kind of a great way to kind of show who you are.
Thank you so much. Would anyone else like to answer that question? Okay. So Misael, I actually have a follow-up question for you, and then if anyone else would like to answer as well. But now that you're graduating, how has your perception of ePortfolio changed over time?
Yeah. So honestly, like at first it's incorporated into the curriculum of the OTA program. So I just saw it as extra work, to be honest. Um, but thanks to the director of the um Professor Lehman, Virginia Lehman, um, she she made me think and reflect, even though I didn't know I was kind of doing it naturally. So at first I thought of it as like extra work. Um, and then like as I went on, especially after the first semester, that's when it kind of, set in. I took a while just like trying to think of what image is gonna like would convey how I was feeling in the moment. And yeah, it's like now I see it as like little moments, like a collection of little moments, and I plan on adding on to it.
Thank you so much. Would anyone else like to answer that question? So again, now that you're graduating or if you're getting closer to graduation, how has your perception of ePortfolio changed over time?
I don't mind answering this question. Oh, I'm sorry. Did I cut someone off?
All right, keep going.
No, no. Please go. Please go.
Okay. So, the sooner I get to graduate. Well, I have my certificate now finished, but it really helped me to visualizing my career as a whole. Law is a very serious or like very not fun um, career path, but ePortfolio has really allowed me to make it a more fun adventure and not take it too seriously in that and just make it more fun. I did ePortfolio back when I was in my bachelor's at John Jay, but it wasn't like this. It was just, I thought it was like, I think at Misael said the same thing, that like, like it was tedious, like everything there. But doing it here made it just way more fun, in my opinion. So, yeah.
Thank you so much. Tyler, did you also want to answer the question?
Yeah, sure. I was kind of on the train with Misael. Is like it just felt like kind of this is where you post your assignments type of thing. But then as we started using it more throughout the at least integrating it into the PTA program as well, you do see the progression of what you're capable of doing or how your I guess maybe how your presentation skills have like grown, maybe your writing skills have grown, and I think it's actually a really good tool to keep all of that information rather than just kind of like on pieces of paper in a filing cabinet somewhere that like you really never really look at anymore. So having it displayed and like seeing it continuously, you can now view and see how you've progressed and what you're capable of doing. And I think that's really important is to expand your capability.
Thank you, Tyler. Now, we also have a question from Carrie in the chat. A lot of you spoke about reflection. So can you speak about how your idea of reflection or process of reflection evolved as you worked on your ePortfolio? So again, this is for anyone to answer, and the question is in the chat as well.
Yeah, I think I can speak a bit about this. I'm still in my first year, like the end of my first year is still like about to come up, but I feel like it's a very big difference from first year seminar to like foundations of education because it tailors more to your career and it kind of like ties back to why do you want to do this or like what is your future goals or how do you see this how are you going to pursue this as you're pursuing your degree, so it's kind of like putting all of that into one place and kind of seeing it all tied together and just seeing how you have more to work with in the future when once like the time comes to start looking into jobs in our field. So I feel like that's like kind of what I would say I noticed like a big like difference in like my first year seminar was more about like time management and like things like that that's like very adaptable to anyone and anyone can have like their own take on that. But with the design studio portfolio and a few more tasks like how I became an educator, it starts to tie more into who you are as a person and the approach you're taking into your career and how you want to expand that into your future.
Thank you, Sarah. Would anyone else like to answer the question from Carrie? So again, the idea of reflection. Can you speak about how your idea of reflection or process of reflection evolved as you worked on your ePortfolio?
I can answer with this. So when I first got into LaGuardia for the first year seminar, the ePortfolio that I was doing was a complete mess. There was almost no data. There was no information of any of my classes. And it was only after my entire journey at LaGuardia where I was asked to do the design studio again for my final class in Thermo. And so if you compare the first ePortfolio that I did with the last one that I did, in the first one, I'm really unsure of what I want to do. I think I listed I wanted to be like a cameraman in one of my potential jobs that I wanted to try out. And now it's a little bit more broad. I have a little bit of a different mindset that I had before, and it was less about what I wanted to get out of it and more what would fulfill me if I were to do it more in the future, right? So I guess it would be something like if you imagine yourself doing something versus actually doing it, that's a very different thing. So that's more or less how my reflection process evolved from where I first started to now, where I actually want to do something else.
Thank you, John. And I actually like that you mentioned design studio, because one of my follow-up questions for anyone is if you can talk a little bit about how you approach designing your ePortfolio. So thinking a little bit about how did you balance between like professional, academic, and personal elements in your ePortfolio through design. So again, speaking a little bit about how you approach the design process.
I can answer this. So, I don't know if you noticed from my ePortfolio, the background is the Supreme Court, just like the highest part of the name, like the law, like everything pertaining to law is there, with the judges and everything. So I took that as part of my profile, but I also incorporated my own style. I really like, well, my favorite color is blue, like a darker blue, and I tried to incorporate the most of that into my ePortfolio. And it's like a darker blue, lighter blue. That was my own personal take. I also like everything to be structured. So every single section of my ePortfolio is labeled, um, including my own projects, even the ePortfolio reflection. Each of the photos are captioned, and I really like everything to be organized. It took me, I was very tedious with my reflection, down to just measuring the pictures to match the text box. But um, but yeah, I really wanted that structure, and I think that reflects easily my portfolio.
Thank you so much. I also will write the question again in the chat for anyone else that would like to answer. So again, can you describe how you approach designing your ePortfolio? So thinking a little bit about how you balance professional, academic, and personal elements. Is there anyone else that would like to jump in?
Yeah, I think I can go ahead. I would say like the personal elements, I think it's more so I took it as kind of like what stood out to me most about my life, or I feel like what brought me most joy in my life in the time. Um, my first e-core portfolio was more like surrounded about like a single flower, like a sunflower. It was like that simple detail. But I feel like as I started to expand like flower arranging and kind of expanding my knowledge on what the different flowers there are and how to work around with colors and stuff like that, I guess after that, going into design studio, I also didn't really know what I wanted to do because I kind of had the same idea of just one flower. But because I have worked with so many flowers, I think I that was like a personal element that I wanted to incorporate with my education, and kind of like um I also think it's pretty like it's not something that's too out there. So I thought it was like a perfect balance of professional and personal. And that's also something that I can talk about in like with future employers, and kind of like also tying that back to education and wanting a colorful room, a colorful classroom in the future, because I think that's also something that I always wanted for myself. But I think that's kind of how the connection worked like for me.
Thank you, Sarah. We have another question in the chat, again, for anyone from Debbie. The question is, many universities are putting emphasis on career competencies. How did you see your ePortfolio as evidence of your career readiness skills?
I can answer that. So, I try to share kind of what values I share in common with the occupational therapy profession, and the belief of like occupational therapy, it's very holistic, take into account many things. And I wanted to on my portfolio share uh that metacognition, to be able uh to recognize that we are made of, different, we're influenced by our environment, our biology, our spirituality. Um, and I wanted to share that because I I want to leave like the competency for like my resume and my like references. Like, if I believe that people who have worked, like, this is my second field work, and I can say that on my resume, I can put my previous field work, because I've been able to kind of uh show my competency to people around me, but it's something that I might include more. I did write about being an evidence-based practitioner and certain articles that caught my mind, that taught me things and that I've used on during my treatments. But I think it's something that I will have to kind of integrate more as I, go out to look for a job after I graduate. And I appreciate that question, Debbie.
Thank you so much. Also, John, did you want to answer this question?
I could answer the question.
Okay, great.
When you say career competencies, you mean more or less the things that are actually marketable for an employer? Well, yeah, the whole ePortfolio is kind of like a resume in a way. You kind of go through your projects and you go through your contact info, maybe your resume. So I always saw it more like a own personal website. Maybe you can have your own image with your face on it, and then you have like sentences that describe what you're about, like a summary, and it's like a nice visual way of showing people what you're about. And in a way, when I presented things in my portfolio, it's kind of showing things that I was proud of and things that I wanted to show, right? So I'm a very visual learner. So I think for an employer that's looking for career readiness or competencies, it would be easy for them to come in and go, oh, look, this person has an image of them doing Excel. I can hire them. I need someone that uses Excel, right? That's kind of like an easy way to connect the two.
Thank you, John. Thank you, everyone, for your questions. We've had a very meaningful conversation, and it's nice to be able to hear from our presenters. We will start wrapping up soon. I just wanted to open the floor if anyone has one remaining question. Again, you can write it in the chat. Otherwise, we will start wrapping up the event. While we're waiting on a question, again, if you can please write a question in the chat. Susan mentioned, for those of you who had prior educational or work experience, as well as hobbies and volunteering, I love how you've connected that in the portfolio to your current studies and career goals. Those connections are really powerful. Thank you, Susan, for the comment. Alrighty, do we have any final questions? Thank you so much to the student presenters. Again, you've done wonderful today. It's very impressive, all the work that you've been able to accomplish. I do want to go ahead and pass over our concluding remarks to Pablo.
Thank you, Christina, and thank you once again to all of our all of our student presenters. I also want to thank the faculty who are behind all of the work that we saw today. You will see in the chat a comment from our colleague Brian from the ePortfolio team. You can see all of these ePortfolios on the web already. If you would like to peruse the work that our students have presented, feel free to do that. The link is already available. And feel free to also connect with us in case you have any questions. Thank you. Follow us on Instagram or Facebook as well to hear updates about the work that we do and also to hear about future showcase events. Once again, thank you to the ePortfolio team, to our student presenters, and to all of you for attending today's event. Thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of your
As
day.
a quick final note, for all the presenters, you'll be receiving an email from us as well. So please be on the lookout for that email. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Take care.